and welcome to Assembly Audible. I'm your host, multimedia editor Jennifer Pierce, and we're so happy you're listening in from the Assembly Show in Rosemont, Illinois. Joining me right now is Jake Hall, the manufacturing millennial.
Yeah,
Jake.
It's great to be here.
Okay, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'm so excited to hash through some of the topics that we have planned for this interview, this conversation.
Yep.
Okay, so in our last interview at the Assembly Show 2022, we talked about STEM education, the labor shortage, automation, among other things, right? Key topics. How have things changed, and what are some areas, in your opinion, where manufacturing has improved?
Yeah, man,
We'll start on a positive note.
Yeah. A lot's changed in the industry. You know, if I were to say what are the 2 or 3 main talking points that are happening in manufacturing recently, one would be there's a lot more talk about AI. Right, since we talked about
Seriously?
in 2022, ChatGPT and OpenAI came out,
Nobody was talking about that.
NVIDIA came out with a bunch of stuff. So now all of a sudden we're beginning to see, okay, how does AI jump into the mix of what we're doing on the manufacturing floor? Everything from upfront work in the office space, from data management and Excels and generation of content, of managing of assets on the floor when it comes to the machine vision space. And then of course when it comes, from our data side as well, from the robotics side of flexibility of programming, AI has taken a massive shift in that area. Another big talking point, I would say, is humanoid robotics have really jumped off in recent years. And they've been around for a while, but you see some of these big things, right? Tesla came out, and then their big thing, Figure came out, and they got a $2 billion evaluation. There's been some big moves like Agility Robotics and Apptronik. So humanoid robots is another big space as well. I think the other big thing that we're seeing a lot of when it comes to new space as well is manufacturers really having this idea of opening up their doors to being more, I guess you could say, open to what is happening on the shop floor, from a industry side to a community side, engaging in future workforce, and then also really pushing on what this collaboration of partners and vendors looks like as well, and giving more accessibility on what production looks like.
Yeah. Do you think that content and content creation, which would include some of the work that you do you think that's contributed to that sort of open door policy?
I would say so. I think the idea is when companies are seeing that they can get good engagement in an authentic way that showcases their purpose and their products, it really says, hey, we need to not be this hidden industry because they're battling these bad stereotypes of only being this dark, dirty doll, dangerous, dumb industry that our parents and our guidance counselors in school told us not to go into. And now all of a sudden, if I can go out there and I can say, hey, look at our clean floors, look at our automation,
Yes.
Look at the robotics we're putting out there, look at how we're leveraging all these digital tools and technology that you use at home in your daily lives, and see how we're using it in manufacturing, it just creates a lot more light opportunity. It shows your vendors and your partners and your customers that you're adapting technology, that you're future-proofing your business, that you can allow for change and flexibility in the economy and the purchasing environments. That's what we need to see.
I see. Okay, so now let's switch gears slightly and talk about what hasn't changed.
Yeah. Oh man, what hasn't changed? I would say there's still way too many companies who are not leveraging social media. We see it where some companies are doing a great job, and you're seeing a lot more subject matter experts within companies starting to post about their company and talk about their customers. But at the same time, I can walk the show floor and I look at a company and I say, wow, I want to learn more about your company, and then I try and find them on LinkedIn and they never post it. So I think it's one of those things and the reason, the bigger issue for that is you have a younger generation who's very used to social media, right? And they're going in, let's say, for a job interview, and they want to interview at XYZ Manufacturing. Well, before they step into that interview, on that shop floor, go to the interview, they say, okay, what does this company do? What do they make? What does their leadership look like? Do I know people who work there? And if you're a company that's not giving them resources on their level, they're not going to be interested in your company. The thing is now, because we're still battling a massive labor shortage, and we will for decades to come. Future workers are going to say, why do I want to work for you, rather than interviews saying why you should work for us. It's almost if the interview has completely swapped over the last 4 to 5 years, where companies need to convince future employees why they should stay and why should they work for them, rather than you being the aggressive person saying, well, tell us all the experience that you have and how you're going to change your company.
Right.
And if we're not understanding that this is the change that's happening in this space, and then preparing a way where, hey, I can go on LinkedIn and I can share the successful stories of our employees and showcase, hey, you can start at this company and this is the growth that you can have while working in this company, where you can start out at an entry-level position and then grow into a senior-level position just through hard work, education. They're not going to come and want to work for that company.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So would you say, in general, manufacturing is in a better state than the last time I interviewed you 2 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. I see more and more companies leveraging new technology, right? Robotics is becoming a lot more flexible. You're seeing robotics being integrated in a lot of new ways. Now, granted, yeah, the total amount of arms for 2023 was lower than 2022, but that's because we saw a massive surplus coming out of the pandemic, and I think we're seeing a new balance and all that stuff. There was a story recently, I think, in the Wall Street Journal that talked about how robotics and automation and the industrial robotics arm is dying or not growing. I completely disagree with that. We're still seeing a massive growth in this industry, and it's exciting.
That's cool. Yeah, definitely. Okay, I love this next question because, I mean, I talk to people all the time. I interview people, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, how have conversations evolved over the years? We've kind of talked about that a little bit, but the bigger thing I'd like to discuss is, do the trends that get talked about get transferred over into plants and implemented?
Yeah. Do the buzzwords actually have
and I think this is important.
Use cases? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. For example, the humanoid robotic market is very buzzy right now, right?
I love it.
We're seeing new product from Tesla. We've seen some stuff with Figure, Abtronic. There's another company out there, I can't remember their name, where they said, hey, here's this humanoid robot working in your home. I wouldn't trust a humanoid robot anywhere near my kids or my family.
Agility robot.
Yeah, or Agility as well. And Melanie at Agility does a great job being vocal about that, but humanoid robots are not going to be ready or safe for a couple years. And I don't see them being integrated into our household or really the manufacturing space for the next 5 to 10 years. There's a lot of changes that need to happen in the industry. Now, we might see individual use cases like we're seeing with BMW or GXO, or DHL rolling some stuff out, or even Amazon Robotics, but there's still a lot that needs to change. So I think there's a lot more hype around humanoid robots than there actually is feasible solutions.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say there was a lot of hype around was companies are always talking about smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0 and this idea of data, and there's so many companies pushing data to become easier. The technology is getting better, but we're still struggling with a massive culture issue, right? If we have new technology but still an old mindset, we're not going to be able to make change. So even though the products are becoming a lot easier to use, or becoming a lot easier to integrate, if leadership within a company is not willing to adopt automation and make actionable use of the data that they collect, it will still never be successful. So I would still say that's a big thing that we're struggling with in this space. And the buzzword is Industry 4.0, IoT, smart manufacturing. Those are constantly buzzwords that are dropped, but unless culture is willing to actually do something that within a company, it's not going to help the company.
Okay. So one of my questions was to ask you to weigh in on humanoid robots.
Yeah.
You started to talk about that. I know you were at the summit recently, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was really good. There was a lot of great speakers there from Neuro Robotics, Melanie from Agility. We had Jeff from Abtronic. Haptics X was there as well. So it was a really good conversation on the state of the industry right now. I think they were really, they didn't try and BS their way around some of the product. I felt they were very open and say, listen, this is the current state. These are the applications that we're solving. And I have hope for the industry, but I think we're still a ways away from it, but it's coming.
Okay.
And that's the biggest thing. Humanoid robots will be in the factories. They will be in the human in the households. They will be used for caregiving in a lot of cases as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a big place as
That's
well,
wild.
right? Where healthcare is such a hard issue right now. You could have robots that are helping a lot with caregiving, and I think that's probably going to be one of the biggest spaces that human and robots are going to be adopted in. You look at it this way: if you have assisted living helping out your mom or your mother-in-law or your father-in-law at a home, you're paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month for home care assisted living. It is not cheap by any means.
I never even thought about that.
And when you go out there and you say, well, hey, the expensive parts of human and robotics is not that far off, especially from a Ross model where you're not buying a robot, you're renting a robot to work in your home. It's not as far off as people think, and I think that's a big space.
That's interesting. So tell me about the naysayers, though, because if the industry as a whole knows that it's about 5 to 10 years away from being something applicable, why are people so critical?
There is, I forgot what to say this, but people fear what they don't know and what they don't understand.
And also throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Maybe another, give it a chance.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's one of those things where there's the Hollywood persona that people fear robotics because robotics in many cases has been, designed as a way to make people fear. From iRobot to Terminator to, all this stuff. What's the TV show that has the scary quadruped robots? The Black Mirrors, right? Robots have always been designed for so long to be made a way to be feared.
Yeah.
Where I think, you can go out there and say, listen, anybody can make any object bad, but if you're using it in a positive aspect, it's going to make a great impact on your industry.
Okay.
So I think humanoid robotics, just as industrial robots, still has this idea of, oh my gosh, robots are just taking jobs and it's not helping people. But when you look at it, actually robots make companies more productive, they make it more competitive, which at the end of the day allows them to keep a lot of people employed in manufacturing globally.
Interesting. Okay, so to wrap up the conversation today, which I so appreciate your time, and
Yeah.
I love your energy, I love talking to you, you inspire me. So you visit a lot of trade shows throughout the year. Some people think you're crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot.
I think I am too sometimes.
30? How many?
I'll do 44 events this year.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So what is the motivating factor there?
I think for me, it's all about, I'm a big vocal of networking and talking with people and sharing your stories. And every single one of these events that I've always gone to, I've always met someone new, had great conversations. I learned something new about the industry, what technology we're using, how we're using technology in a new way to solve a problem. And being able to go to in-person events, I still think will always be more valuable than online content.
Right.
And so being able
Yeah.
to have those conversations in person is what makes it amazing.
So at the shows, thematically across the board, what are some of the trends or topics that you're seeing discussed or technologies presented?
Yeah, the biggest thing that we're focusing more on now is this collaboration. People are calling it Industry 5.0. I still think it's Industry 4.0, but this collaboration is more focused on how do we leverage
Human-centric.
technology with the human-centric focus.
Yeah.
So how are we enabling workers to make them more productive, to make their lives easier, to make it so manufacturing is getting more complex in many ways, yet the workforce is getting, I wouldn't say lesser educated, but they don't have the same skill sets as a total workforce because the people of tribal knowledge who've been in the industry for 30 or 40 years are leaving. So you have a lot of young people who don't have that experience that needs them to get caught up really quickly in a very complex manufacturing world. So how do we then enable the right tool sets to leverage complex manufacturing with the younger workforce? And so I think that's the biggest thing is how do we make manufacturing simpler and easier to do?
Cool. Well, what is on the horizon for JCall over the next 5 years?
Over the next 5 years. I've been really enjoying speaking at a lot of different presentations and associations and trade shows and events. I probably did 20 some this year. Next year I'm already booked up for about 20 more. So a lot of keynote presentations and speaking at associations and companies and trade shows is a big thing that I'm focused on. Just going around next year, I'm going to be in Germany for Automatica, so I'm going to do about a month trip in Germany. I'm going to do a couple weeks in Mexico, and so my whole goal is to start traveling around and talk about what all these different countries have in the manufacturing space, and then how that relates to a lot of manufacturing and partnerships.
Fantastic. So like an international
Exactly.
spin on
We're doing
things.
more of an
Okay.
international tour for 2025.
I love that. Thank you so much for your
Yeah,
time.
it was a pleasure. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Also
Appreciate
fist
it.
bump maybe,
Let's
or
do it.
whatever the dudes do
Exactly.
at these things. Okay. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Assembly Audible. We invite you to check out all of our content, webinars, and events on assemblymag.com. Also, please follow us and J-Call on all of our social media platforms. I'm Jennifer Pierce, signing off for today. Thanks for listening.